This year's E3 was all about the next gen battle, and especially between Sony and Microsoft with Nintendo's Wii U already in stores. Both consoles were already revealed, well, sort of, because we only saw the PlayStation 4's controller and not the console itself. To start with the hardware, there's not a big difference between the two. Although you could say PS4 is a bit more powerful, as this console has 8 GB GDDR5 RAM memory, and the Xbox One DDR3. When it comes to the controllers, the PlayStation controller changed the most, and maybe that's a good thing. Not everyone was a fan of the design of the DualShock 3 controller that was used for PlayStation 3 because it's quite small, and if you have big hands, that's not great. So now the handles are a bit longer, but the main button layout didn't change. However, there is a clickable touchpad in the center of the controller. Also, the triggers at the back of the controller changed, so they're now less slippery. The dual analog sticks up front are a bit lower and not as big as the PS3 ones. The Xbox One controller didn't change that much at first sight. The biggest improvement is the new D-pad, which was one of the worst features on the Xbox 360 controller. Also, the triggers at the back are motorized, so you now have a certain rumble feedback. Furthermore, they didn't change a lot, which is a good thing because a lot of people think the Xbox 360 controller was already perfect. Now, you may be wondering, why are there so many Xbox One haters on the internet? Well, there are multiple reasons for that. First of all, Microsoft requires you to check in once every 24 hours, otherwise you can't play your games. Well, let's say you're at a place where you don't have an internet connection. Well, you're fucked. No, Microsoft says you can also do that check-in with your smartphone, for example, which has most of the time an internet connection over 3G or 4G if you're lucky. Well, okay, you don't want to do this, I understand. Secondly, every Xbox One comes with a second generation Kinect camera that needs to be plugged in to use your console. I'm not even sure if there is a power button on your console. You can turn it on by saying Xbox on. Well, and that might be fun the first time and maybe even the second time or the third time when your friends are over. But no, seriously, you don't want to talk to your Xbox like a freak. I mean, what's wrong with just pressing a button? Then there is also a privacy issue because if that Kinect camera is always on, Microsoft can see everything you do. Everything. And Microsoft say they won't, but yeah, it's basically all about trust. Then there's another thing. At this year's E3, Microsoft announced that the Xbox One will ship for $499. And that is quite a good price. Until Sony announced that the PlayStation 4 will ship for $399. Yeah. Now how can the PS4 be cheaper if the hardware is a bit better? Well, the PlayStation 4 doesn't come with that camera thing. Although there is a new improved PlayStation Eye, it's not required for whatever game. Then there's also a thing about used games. With Microsoft's Xbox One, you basically cannot play used games. At least not for free. With PlayStation 4, you can play used games. You can give your games to a friend and he can play it. He can even give it back. It's not a problem at all. Although on Xbox One, you can share your games via Family Share. Overall, people see too many disadvantages with Xbox One. And then I didn't even talk about the whole TV and media thing. It's an entertainment box rather than a game box only. And that's Microsoft's own fault. Because maybe it is a game device in general, but they didn't present it that way. At the press conference this E3, Sony announced that the PlayStation 4 doesn't require an online check-in every 24 hours, although some games may require an online connection to play. And that's the thing with most next-gen games. They're all open world and you're basically never alone. There are always other players, although you don't even play with them directly. Microsoft announced a lot of deals with game developers and publishers for exclusives. Think about Titanfall, that is made by former Modern Warfare creators. That game will come exclusively to Xbox One and Xbox 360. The same is about Dead Rising 3, which is quite a popular title. And then in the racing genre, you have Forza 5, which is better than Drive Club. Yeah, it is, definitely. So, which consoles should you buy? Well, buy a Wii U and play Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros. Well, if you don't want that, based on what people are telling now, based on what we've seen now, most people will buy a PlayStation 4. If you are already a PlayStation gamer, it's safe to say that you can stick with PlayStation 4. You're not gonna miss anything. Although you do have to pay now for playing online games. If you already are an Xbox gamer, you can stick with Microsoft too. Although, yeah, if you don't have a good internet connection, you might not want to. Both consoles have great launch games, but they're just different from each other. Yeah, maybe you could look at the launch games. And I don't think consoles will differ that much when it comes to third-party support. However, some games will be exclusively on Xbox and some games will be exclusively on PlayStation. It just depends on what kind of deals Sony makes or Microsoft makes with game publishers. And if you really don't know what console you want to buy a PC and play games via Steam, which is definitely great. Yeah, you could do that too.